A Nigerian woman and Korean man fake a marriage for immigration, but against all odds they fall deeply in love for real. Married for papers, fell for love. Seoul in autumn was beautiful. Crisp winds, golden leaves, and the kind of chill that reminded you were far from home. For Amina Okoro, a Nigerian fashion graduate on an expiring student visa, it was also the season of desperation. Amina stared at the letter again. Your visa will expire in 30 days. Failure to leave the country may result in deportation. She crumpled it and tossed it in the trash. Her part-time job at a boutique in Hongdae barely paid rent. She had no sponsor, no legal options left. And yet, something in her refused to give up. She'd worked too hard, studied too long. Her dreams weren't meant to die in an immigration office. I need a miracle, she muttered. That miracle came in the form of a whispered suggestion from her roommate, Somin. A fake marriage, Somin said over late-night ramen. It's illegal, but lots of people do it. Quietly. Carefully. You marry a Korean man for papers. Pay him. After a while, divorce. Amina stared. That's risky. Somin shrugged. So is going back to Nigeria with nothing. Meanwhile, Jihoon Park was having problems of his own. As the cold, calculating heir to Park Global Logistics, he was known in Seoul's business circles as reliable but cold. His father's will had set a condition. Jihoon must marry before age 30 to take full control of the company. That birthday? Less than 3 months away. His mother had already paraded a series of elite Korean women in front of him. All beautiful. All polished. All completely uninterested in the real Jihoon. He wanted none of it. He just needed someone willing to play a role. That's when his assistant Minjun made a suggestion. Find someone with something to gain. Not love. Just mutual need. Somin introduced them in a dim cafe in Itaewon. Amina was skeptical. Jihoon was blunt. I don't want a real marriage, he said, sipping his Americano. I want to fulfill a condition. You want to stay in Korea. We sign a deal, get married, attend interviews, and go our separate ways in 2 years. You get papers. I get the company. And money? Amina asked. Korean 130 million. Half up front. Half after the divorce. Silence. Any emotional attachments? She asked. Jihoon gave a dry smile. None. I don't believe in love. Amina held out her hand. Then let's not fall into it. The wedding was a quiet courthouse affair. No family. No friends. Just 2 signatures and a lie stitched in silk. They moved into Jihoon's modern apartment in Gangnam to make the marriage look real. The place was cold black marble floors, minimalist furniture, and the emotional warmth of a tax document. They learned the basics. Favorite colors. Allergies. How they met, a fake story about a shared taxi ride. They even staged a few Instagram photos to make it look believable. Smiling with coffee, laughing at a park, cuddling with a book they never read. At night, they retreated to opposite sides of the apartment like strangers. Don't snore, Jihoon said flatly. Don't be boring, Amina replied. But faking a marriage is harder than signing papers. There were immigration interviews, nosy neighbors, suspicious stares. And in public they had to perform, hands held tightly, smiles painted perfectly. One day, after a particularly awkward couple's dinner with Jihoon's colleagues, he turned to her and said, "You're surprisingly good at this." "What, pretending to like you?" He smirked. "Exactly." But that night, as they shared a quiet moment over tea, Amina asked softly, "Why don't you believe in love?" Jihoon looked away. "Because love cost my father everything. He married my mother for love. She destroyed him." Amina said nothing. But she watched him more closely after that. Then came the first unexpected moment. Amina fell sick. Flu, fever, the whole mess. She expected Jihoon to ignore her. Instead he brought her soup. Sat by her bed. Checked her temperature with his hand, not a device. "You don't have to do this," she mumbled. "I know," he replied. "But I'm not a monster." For the first time she believed it. And for the first time he looked at her not as a contract, but as a woman. 1 week later they had their first real laugh. Amina accidentally burned Jihoon's prized imported Japanese rice cooker while trying to make jollof rice. "I told you not to touch it," he barked. "You told me not to snore too, and I still did." He paused, then burst out laughing. And Amina joined in. For 5 whole minutes they weren't pretending. They were just happy. It didn't mean love. But it meant something. Then came the twist. Yuri, Jihoon's ex-fiancé. Beautiful. Powerful. And now suddenly back in Seoul working with Park Global as a business partner. She saw the wedding photos. She smirked at the news. And she knew instantly. This marriage isn't real. But I can break it anyway. You're glowing, Jihoon, Yuri said with a glass of wine in hand. Marriage suits you. Jihoon forced a smile. Thanks. Amina sat beside him at the Park Global dinner event, her curls pulled back, a quiet grace in her posture. She wasn't used to these gatherings, polished people in sleek suits, speaking in half-truths and full ego. But she played her part well. Smiling. Laughing at the right jokes. Answering in simple Korean when spoken to. Yuri, however, watched her like a hawk. Where did you two meet again? She asked, lips pursed. In a taxi, Amina said confidently. We fought over who called it. Cute, Yuri replied, eyes cold. And how long before you knew you were in love? Jihoon answered before Amina could. Love didn't come quickly. But when it did, it felt like it had always been there. Yuri smiled, sharp as a knife. I'm happy for you. Really. Later that night in the car, Amina sat in silence. Jihoon drove with one hand, his expression unreadable. She doesn't believe us, Amina finally said. She never believed in anyone but herself. I don't trust her. You shouldn't. Silence again. Then he added quietly, she's dangerous when she feels ignored. Over the next few weeks things grew strange. Yuri started showing up unannounced at Park Global. Delivering documents herself instead of using messengers. She began inviting Amina to ladies' lunches with Seoul's elite wives, where she was quietly mocked with passive-aggressive questions like, do you miss spicy African food? You must find our culture advanced. Are you planning to start a family soon? Or is this just a stepping stone? Amina swallowed her pride. She had to. But inside, a fire was building. One night, back in their apartment, Jihoon noticed her frustration. You don't have to go to those events anymore, he said. I do, she replied. If I don't play the game, they'll know it's all fake. He watched her carefully. You're doing more than just playing. I don't want to embarrass you. The words hung in the air like mist. He looked at her differently then, not like a contract or an inconvenience, but like a partner. He poured her a glass of wine. Thank you. She smiled softly. For what? For making it real enough to feel fake. That weekend they took a trip to Busan. Just 4 appearances, Jihoon claimed. But there was no press. No cameras. Just them. Amina had never seen the ocean in Korea before. She stood barefoot at the shore, waves lapping at her toes, wind tugging at her braids. Jihoon stood beside her, hands in his pockets. This is the first time I've been to the beach without a board meeting scheduled the next day, he said. You work too much. He looked at her. You're not what I expected. He turned to him. Is that a compliment? I'm not sure, he replied, then added, but I don't regret this. Neither did she. But peace never lasted long. A week later they were summoned for their first immigration review. The officer had questions. Inside the office the atmosphere was tight. The officer, a stern woman with glasses, looked through their file. How did you meet again? She asked. In a taxi, they replied together. She nodded. Favorite food? Kimchi jjigae, Jihoon said. Ogbono soup, Amina added. The officer blinked. Excuse me. She's teaching me to cook Nigerian dishes, Jihoon said smoothly. We swap every other week. Very cultural, the officer said, scribbling notes. More questions. Wedding details. Honeymoon. How often they fought. What side of the bed they slept on. Then came the request. We'll be conducting a home visit in 2 weeks. Amina stiffened. Jihoon stayed calm. We'll be ready. That night, Jihoon rearranged the apartment. Put their clothes together. Staged toothbrushes. Bought a dog bed for a fictional pet they'd given away. Every lie had to be rehearsed. Amina walked into the kitchen holding a photo frame. You didn't have any pictures of your parents, she said. I burned most of them, Jihoon replied quietly. My mother still sends me letters. Mostly threats masked as prayers. Does she know about us? She knows enough. Amina sighed. If we get caught. We won't. She turned to him, eyes fierce. I'm risking my whole future. He stepped forward. So am I. And for the first time he touched her hand, not for show, not for the cameras. Just for her. Then came Yuri's final move. She leaked a story. Park Ji-hoon's marriage in question. Sources claim visa scam. It hit the internet like wildfire. Amina's photo. Ji-hoon's profile. A suspicious timeline. Comments flooded in. She's just using him. Another foreigner trying to cheat the system. He deserves better, like Yuri. They both knew who leaked it. Ji-hoon called a board meeting to control the damage. Amina was advised to stay indoors. But she didn't. Instead, she marched into Yuri's office face to face. You could have had him, but you wanted control. That's why you lost. Yuri just smirked. He'll never love you, Amina. He doesn't even know how. Maybe not, Amina said, but at least he's learning. And she walked away. Back home, Ji-hoon was pacing. You could have been arrested for confronting her. She's not a god, Amina said. Just a bitter woman who thought she owned you. He stared at her. He stared back. Then something broke between them. Maybe it formed. Ji-hoon stepped forward and kissed her, not out of obligation or strategy, but with the hunger of a man who didn't realize how starved he was for something real. She kissed him back. And for the first time, it wasn't fake. The kiss changed everything. It wasn't long or overly passionate. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. For two people who had built their connection on lies and necessity, that small moment of truth felt like an earthquake beneath their feet. Ji-hoon stepped back first, breath uneven. Amina's heart pounded in her chest. They stared at each other, the tension humming in the space between them. Was that part of the script? She asked quietly. No, he said. Not anymore. And then he left the room, afraid of what he'd just done and what it meant. The next morning was awkward. Amina made breakfast. Ji-hoon avoided eye contact. They spoke about the immigration visit. The online scandal. Yuri. Anything but the kiss. But their silence didn't erase the shift between them. Ji-hoon now noticed how Amina hummed when she cooked. How she tied her headscarf with care. How her laughter made the apartment feel less like a showroom and more like a home. Amina noticed how he never let his tea go cold. How he watched dramas in secret. How he spoke softer around her now. It was like seeing each other for the first time without masks. Then came the home inspection. 2 immigration officers knocked on the door at exactly 10 a.m. Amina and Ji-hoon greeted them like the perfect couple. Their apartment looked like a Pinterest board. Shared closets, photos from Busan, matching mugs, love notes strategically placed in drawers. The officers asked questions. Walked around. Checked their bathroom. Flipped through a fake anniversary photo album Ji-hoon had printed overnight. Then came the curveball. Tell me one thing your spouse does that annoys you, one officer asked, smirking. Ji-hoon hesitated. She hogs the blanket. Amina laughed. Only because you sleep like a robot. The officers smiled. And just like that they passed. That night they celebrated with soju and grilled meat on the rooftop. Amina leaned on the railing, staring at the city lights. We fooled them. Ji-hoon sat beside her. We didn't lie. Not completely. She looked at him. We lied about why we married. But not who we are now, he added. She raised a brow. Are you saying this marriage is becoming real? I'm saying, I don't want it to end. Amina's heart skipped. She could have asked if he meant it. Pressed for a label. But instead she just said, then stop being scared and kiss me again. He did. Their relationship took a different turn after that. It wasn't just about appearances anymore. They began waking up next to each other on purpose. Ji-hoon started coming home earlier from work. Amina stopped calling the bedroom his, and started referring to it as ours. They laughed more. They argued too. About silly things. Amina's hair products crowding the sink, Ji-hoon's obsession with organization. But their fights ended in hugs, not cold shoulders. They were becoming a real couple. By choice, not contract. But not everyone was happy about it. Yuri wasn't done. She sent an anonymous tip to immigration, claiming the marriage was staged and backed it with a copy of Amina's old visa expiration letter. The authorities reopened the case. Ji-hoon's father, who had stayed quiet through the media scandal, finally spoke. Divorce her before the board votes. If the scandal spreads, you lose everything. Ji-hoon didn't hesitate. No. You'll give it all up for a foreign woman who married you for papers? Ji-hoon looked his father dead in the eye. She married me when no one else would. Now I'm the one falling for her. I won't let her go. His father left in silence. For once, Ji-hoon didn't care about legacy. That night he told Amina everything. She listened, fingers curled in her lap. You could lose your company, she whispered. I'd rather lose that than lie about you. Amina stood up, trying to hold back tears. This wasn't supposed to happen. What? You weren't supposed to matter this much. He tried to walk away. But Ji-hoon stopped her with a whisper. I love you. 3 words. The same ones he claimed he'd never believe in. He loved her, not for the image, not for the solution, but for the woman she was. Fierce. Honest. Beautiful. Amina turned around, her eyes brimming. I love you too. 2 days later, immigration called again. An in-person review. A final decision. One more chance to prove their marriage was legitimate. They showed up, hand in hand. This time not out of strategy but solidarity. They answered every question honestly. They shared memories without rehearsal. Ji-hoon even showed the officers a picture he had taken secretly. Amina laughing in her pajamas, hair wrapped, sauce on her cheek. She doesn't know I took this. But it's my favorite. The officer smiled, then stood. We'll be in touch. A week passed. Then the call came. Amina picked it up with shaking hands. Yes. Yes, thank you. She dropped the phone and turned to Ji-hoon. We're approved. They believe us. Ji-hoon let out a breath and smiled. Not because they had fooled anyone, but because finally, everything they were feeling no longer needed to be hidden. He wrapped his arms around her. No lies. No more pretending. His love. Immigration approval came as a breath of relief. A stamp of legitimacy in a world where everything about them had once been questioned. But as the adrenaline wore off, Amina found herself asking, what now? She stood at the kitchen counter the next morning, frying plantains while Ji-hoon scrolled through his phone. We should take a real honeymoon, he said. Amina laughed. We barely survived fake marriage, now you want to go on a real trip? I'm serious. Jeju? Or Lagos? She paused. You'd go to Nigeria? He looked up. Would you take me? The way he asked it, genuinely, not performatively, melted something in her chest. But there was hesitation too. Her past, her family, the reasons she left in the first place. You don't know what you're asking. Then tell me. She didn't answer right away. But that evening she handed him a worn photo from her wallet. That's my mom. My sister. Taken the week I left. Ji-hoon studied the photo. The resemblance was striking. Same bold eyes, same pride in posture. Where's your father? Dead to us. Left when I was 12. I'm sorry. He shrugged. It's life. You never talk about Nigeria much. I talk about it all the time, she corrected. Just, not the parts that matter. He waited. Then finally she said it. I left because I was tired of being told who I was allowed to be. And when I got here I thought I'd finally be free. But the truth is, this whole time I've been hiding. Hiding behind me? No. Hiding with you. The honesty stung them both, but it also bonded them deeper than ever. They booked the tickets. 2 weeks later they flew to Lagos. It was Ji-hoon's first time in Africa. As the plane descended, he looked out the window and murmured, "It's beautiful." Amina smiled. "Wait till you taste the food." The city welcomed them with heat, color, and noise. Everything was louder, faster, messier than Seoul, but it was alive. Ji-hoon was overwhelmed, but he didn't say it. Instead, he held her hand tighter as they walked through the Murtala Muhammad airport. Her sister, Halima, was waiting with arms open. "Amina. My God, you brought a man." Ji-hoon bowed awkwardly. Halima cackled. "Aw, you want to greet me like that? Come here, Jor." She pulled him into a hug before dragging them both into her car. Ji-hoon whispered to Amina, "She's intense. She's the easy one. Wait till you meet my mother." Mama wasn't so easily impressed. She sat in the small parlor of their Suralere apartment, arms folded across her chest, eyeing Ji-hoon with suspicion. She barely smiled when introduced. "So, you're the reason my daughter hasn't come home in 4 years." Amina winced. "Mama, no. Ji-hoon stepped forward and bowed. Ma'am. I came to ask for her blessing. For real this time. Mama narrowed her eyes. Do you speak Yoruba? He froze. And no. He looked at Amina. And this is who you chose. OGAO. It was a tense hour of silence and stern conversation, but by the end of the evening, Ji-hoon had helped fix a broken ceiling fan, washed dishes without being asked, and offered to fetch water when the tap cut off. Mama softened. Slightly. He's not useless, she murmured. In Nigerian mother terms, that was basically an engagement announcement. The days passed in a blur. Markets, family visits, neighborhood gossips. Ji-hoon tried jollof rice and suyao, danced awkwardly at a street party, and even wore an agbada one Sunday to church. People stared, curious, amused, sometimes disapproving. But Amina saw something in him she hadn't seen before. Comfort. Not with the culture but with her place in it. This is who I was before Seoul, she said one night. And this is who I fell for, he replied. One night, lying beneath a fan that barely worked, Ji-hoon turned to her. Let's renew our vows. She blinked. Why? Because the first one was a lie. I want the real thing. In front of who? Your family. My few friends. No media. No business partners. Just us. Amina stared at the ceiling for a long time before whispering, okay. And just like that they began planning a second wedding. It was small. A local church. A rented hall. A mix of colorful geli, Korean hanbok, and two cultures learning to clap on beat together. Halima officiated. Mama wore her best lace and cried during the vows. Ji-hoon read his lines in broken Yoruba. Amina's voice cracked as she said, this time I say yes without needing anything in return. No cameras. No immigration officers. Just love, loud and alive in every corner of the room. The night ended with fireworks and laughter, and as they danced under the Lagos sky, Ji-hoon whispered in her ear. Thank you for not just marrying me but choosing me again. Amina smiled, leaned in close and whispered. This is the only marriage that counts. Seoul felt different when they returned. It wasn't the city that had changed, it was them. The streets were still clean and fast. The subways still whispered in polite announcements. People still walked quickly, heads down, buried in their routines. But Ji-hoon and Amina walked hand in hand now, not pretending. Not hiding. They weren't a contract or a convenience or a cover story anymore. They were a couple, married not by need but by choice. But reality didn't pause for romance. Ji-hoon's father was waiting. He summoned him to the company's boardroom the day after they landed. The mood was cold. Formal. You were reckless, his father said without greeting. Ji-hoon sat calm. I was honest. You embarrassed us, again. I saved the company, Ji-hoon corrected. You may not like the route I took but the public does. Our stocks are stable. Our brand is stronger. You could have done all that without turning your life into a TV drama. Ji-hoon leaned in. But I didn't want to. Because for the first time my life is mine. Not yours. Not the board's. Not anyone else's. His father looked at him. Truly looked at him, for the first time in years. You've changed. I've grown. There was silence. And then something rare. A nod of reluctant respect. You'll lead this company your own way. Let's see if it lasts. Back at home, Amina had her own battles. She received a message from the immigration officer who once doubted her. Ms. Yusuf, I saw your wedding photos. Congratulations. I was wrong about you. She stared at the message for a long time before smiling softly. Proof wasn't always about papers. Sometimes the truth proved itself in time. They began to build slowly. Amina launched her own digital platform, connecting African expats in Asia, sharing stories, advice, job leads, and cultural experiences. She used her voice to help others navigate the spaces she once struggled in. Ji-hoon supported her without overshadowing her. He made sure she had resources, connections, but most of all, freedom. Are you sure you're okay with me doing my own thing? She asked one evening. He grinned. You think I fell for you just to lock you down? She kissed him in response. They weren't perfect. They argued about career priorities, cultural differences, when to visit family again. Sometimes they disagreed on how to handle press attention. Ji-hoon leaned diplomatic. Amina leaned direct. But every fight ended with truth. Every silence ended with softness. They were learning how to do more than just love. They were learning how to stay. 1 year later they stood on a stage, not as a couple being judged, but as guest speakers at a multicultural summit in Seoul. Amina wore a stunning ochre jacket. Ji-hoon wore a simple suit with a geli-patterned pocket square. She spoke first. "My name is Amina Yusuf. Nigerian-born, Seoul-based. I came here chasing a dream and ended up in a marriage I thought would save me. It did, but not in the way I expected." Ji-hoon stepped beside her. "My name is Kim Ji-hoon. Korean by birth, global by heart. I married Amina for immigration reasons. And I ended up falling in love with my life for the first time." The crowd clapped not just for their story, but for their courage. After the talk, a young couple approached them, a Kenyan woman and a Japanese man. "We're engaged," the woman said nervously. "And people keep saying it won't last." Amina took her hand. "Then make them wrong." Loudly. Ji-hoon smiled. "Love doesn't need translation. It just needs truth." That night, Amina and Ji-hoon returned to the rooftop where they'd first shared soju and secrets. The city sparkled below. He passed her a cup. "To fake marriages." She clinked hers against his. "That became the realest thing we've ever done." They sat in silence for a while, letting the breeze and stars fill the gaps. And then Ji-hoon pulled a small box from his pocket. "No cameras this time. No deals. Just us." Inside the box was a simple ring, rose gold with an engraving on the inside. "No lies. Just love." Amina blinked. "You're proposing again?" "No," he said. "I'm renewing." She took the ring and slid it onto her finger. "I do. Always." He kissed her hand. "Let's keep choosing each other. Every day." And they did. Through culture clashes. Through whispers. Through the noise of a world that rarely made space for stories like theirs. They kept choosing each other. Not for the benefits. Not for the headlines. Not even for the fairy tale. But because love, when real, doesn't need permission. It just needs two people brave enough to believe in it. Tell what part of this love story touched you.